What it be, amigos? You know who I am, and if you don't, someone needs to drag you out from under your rock. Well, since I made a list of favorite movies last year, it's only fair I make a new one for the movies I saw in 2011. Recently, I went on a movie watching frenzy, trying to find the movies I missed, which took up a lot of my time that I could have been using to make more Toon Critic videos. Now, out of the 60 plus movies that I watched in 2011, yeah, I know, I don't have a life. Here are the top 20 to get my seal of approval. And just because I feel like it, soon I'll be making top 7 worst movies I've seen in 2011. Number 20, Unknown. Ha, Liam Neeson. Just like Nicolas Cage, your choice of movies has not always been very consistent. To think you did so well in Schindler's List and had such a bright future, and nowadays you're willing to star in just about anything to pay the rent. However, there are one or two rare occasions where Neeson does turn in something that isn't horrible, and that is actually something pretty decent. That's where Unknown falls in. It keeps you wondering what's really going on. The tension and drama flow and work together like a well-oiled machine. Even the twist was interesting, and that's what this movie is. Interesting. By no means is it bad, but it's worth a rent if you need a quick popcorn flick to ease your boredom. It's slightly better than Taken, but it is certainly no Jason Bourne. Number 19, Rio. See my favorite animated movies 2011 video for more info. And all the other animated movies, I'm going to say the same thing. Number 18, Green Hornet. Okay, I take back almost everything I've said about Seth Rogen. Every actor makes a few mistakes, and Rogen's made a lot of misses compared to hits. And Green Hornet, though, is one of his hits. It is an amusing action comedy that feels like a parody at times, but turns serious when it is needed. The action is pretty basic, but it is still pretty cool. Not really cliche, though. Most action movies struggle with telling a story and opt for guns and explosions, but Green Hornet actually tells a story and makes it interesting. I like who they got for Kato. He fit in well and they didn't stereotype him. Cameron Diaz in this is way better than in Bad Teacher in my opinion. The action parts look amazing even if they aren't in 3D, though they were made for it. It reminds me a lot of The Matrix. I'd go so far as to call this underrated. It's quite enjoyable and has some replay value to it. If they were to make a sequel to it, I'd gladly watch it. And I don't say that about a lot of movies. Number 17, The Lincoln Lawyer. Now, I love courtroom thrillers. My favorite is and always will be Primal Fear, and I think it's fair to add The Lincoln Lawyer to my list of favorites. Matthew McConaughey does not get very many good movie roles, but what he is given here shows him at his best. Things may not be what they seem at first, but by the time the movie is over, everything makes sense. The movie uses its 2 hours to its advantage and keeps you interested from start to finish. Ryan Felipe was a little bland in this, but then again, he is not a stupendous or memorable actor to begin with. Josh Lucas and Marissa Tomei and even William H. Macy took a back seat to Matt, but they get their chances to shine here and there. Overall, this underrated gem deserves a little more attention, and if you're a McConaughey fan, you'd like this. Oh, and hi, Michelle O'Connell from Bones. I hope I said that name right. I don't care if I did, though. Number 16, Winnie the Pooh. See the list. Number 15, Pirates of the Caribbean 4 on Stranger Tides. I'm going to go on record and say I love the Pirates of the Caribbean series. I never thought that Disney would be able to make this series so delightful and action-packed, because Disney really knows how to cater to the male demographic. The first trilogy of Pirates was awesome, and despite the problems it faced with the sappy love story of Will and Elizabeth, thankfully this time around, we don't have them to worry about. Now it's all for Jack Sparrow to shine. On Stranger Tides has a different feel than the other 3 films. Despite the mildly confusing story, the action that the series is well known for is still here. Sparrow is still awesome, Penelope Cruz is feisty and enjoyable, Barbossa is still his treacherous self, but Blackbeard could have been a little better. I still like this, but I wonder what they could possibly do for the 5th installment. Number 14, Limitless. It's official, Bradley Cooper is the manlier version of Matthew McConaughey. Think of this movie sort of as a modern-day version of Flowers for Algernon, except with a much cooler premise. It really does make you wonder what would happen if you used the NZT drug, and if you would use its power for good or bad. Me? I'd get off my lazy ass and try to have one of those lives that some of my friends keep talking about. I hear you can get them used off Amazon. The concept alone for Limitless is already a seller, and Cooper as the lead is a brilliant and charismatic choice. There's some action here and there to balance things, and I found it very clever when everything comes into color when NZT is used. De Niro was there in the background as, well, himself, and didn't really get a lot of things to do. Definitely check this out. It's a great sci-fi flick that is worth the praise and the money. Number 13, Okay, Sucker Punch is one hell of a thrill ride. It's a psychological dream journey with some of the most amazing CGI and visual effects I have ever seen in a movie. You could tell Zack Snyder pulled out all the stops on his first original script. You really need to pay attention to the finer details in the movie, and it will all make sense in the end, because it leads to a very satisfying conclusion. So, in the end, you do not feel gypped. One of my friends said Sucker Punch is sort of like Inception meets Powerpuff Girls. I can agree to that, just add the kick-ass of 300 and the visual style of Watchmen. Music plays a big part of Sucker Punch, and it helps add to the video game-ish flow of the movie. This punk-apocalyptic flick is, I believe, the best Zack Snyder film I have seen. Some people might say this has Avatar syndrome, which is high on the visuals and fail in the story, but to me, it finds its balance and stays on it. Sucker Punch gets high marks for not just the visuals, but for the intriguing story. It may or not be for you, but if it is, you are in for a treat. Snyder, you have yet to disappoint me. Now, if you can make Man of Steel Superman work, then you can do anything. Number 12, 30 minutes or less. Now, it took me a while to get used to Jesse Eisenberg. I was not the biggest fan of him in The Social Network, but I really liked his work in Rio, and in his latest solo flick, 30 Minutes or Less. After seeing so many mediocre movies, I really needed a comedy like this to raise my spirits. The chemistry between Eisenberg and Arnaz is brilliant. There are a lot of crude moments, but the humor, while a bit childish at some points, is actually rather amusing. I feel, though, they wasted Michael Pena and just made him a stereotypical Latino thug. I wasn't too fond in the idea, but it was still hilarious. The timing and the execution works so well, especially with the two thugs that names escape me. I think they were Danny McBride and Nick Swarsden. Swarsden, sorry man, but you aren't funny. And Bucky Larson clearly showed that. And as for Eisenberg, well, who better to play the role than you? Overall, this movie had a real feel to it. The dialogue is a tad immature, but still funny, and the actors turn in some amusing performances. I'd say this is the best comedy of 2011. Number 11, Fast 5. Fast cars, Vin Diesel, The Rock, rough and beat 'em up action. Hey, I'm already sold. Fast 5 is the latest entry in the Fast and Furious series, and so far my favorite. Now, I'll admit the story can be confusing, but if you're here for the story, well, this movie can't properly deliver on that. Or should I say, doesn't deliver on all cylinders. It tries, but you're there for the fast cars and explosions. And remember, explosions can always tell a story, right, Michael Bay? This movie is a lot of fun, and it knows this. If action movies are your thing, then I can recommend this. If you want to get the full experience, you might want to see some of the other movies. And while I'm at it, fuck Vin Diesel winning. Riddick holds nothing on The Rock. Just saying. Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. Number 10. The Adjustment Bureau. I'll admit, the story can be really confusing, but I will give props to the concept. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. Now, I've said before, I love sci-fi movies because I love to see how creative filmmakers can be using ideas and bringing them to life. Just imagine wearing a hat that lets you travel through one door and come out somewhere completely different. It really makes you wonder if your life is written and you're just following a guided line. Matt Damon was a great choice for the main hero. Emily Blunt, I thought, did pretty good, though I may have to see her more to see what she's capable of, and overall, I really enjoyed this movie. Sci-fi fans are going to love this. Number 9. Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. Cleaning up the crap from MI3, Ghost Protocol kicks things into high gear as if no time had passed. We all may not like Tom Cruise as a person, but no one can play Ethan Hunt like him. Putting in Simon Pegg and Jeremy Renner was a smart choice in my mind, seeing as how they are both great actors to begin with, and I like seeing them interact. Now, I love the first movie, and even like the second movie a bit too, but I'm not too fond of the third movie. I kinda forgot about it. All I know is that some guy that I don't really remember off the top of my head was in it. And now to quickly nitpick, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Well, you know I have 4 in your name. 1, 2, 3, Ghost Protocol. Am I missing something here, or am I getting chronologically confused? Compared to the other 3, Ghost Protocol is now my favorite movie in the Mission Impossible series. The action gets your adrenaline going, the suspense keeps you on the edge of your seat, and the acting is great. I say definitely watch it, even if you haven't seen the first 3. Number 8, Puss in Boots. See the list. Number 7, Hugo. Now, tell me why didn't this win Best Picture at the Academy Awards? I was thrilled to see this movie, and quite interested to see if Martin Scorsese could make a family film. What I got was an amazing heartfelt journey that truly felt magical. I didn't read the book this is based on, but I'm certainly intrigued to now. Asa Butterfield as Hugo was phenomenal. Kid actors these days aren't very good, but it takes a special kind of acting to really convey yourself. I mean, they should look to Doctor Who. They got the best child actors around, just saying. Ben Kingsley and Christopher Lee were excellent in the roles they were given, and Chloe Moretz did a great job as well. One of the best things about this movie is the visuals, especially while the characters discuss the history of film. The art style and the visuals were so good, it was almost like watching an animated movie. And I have yet to see a movie pull off what Hugo has. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's a movie that needs to be seen to be believed. Number 6, Rango. See the list. Number 5, Source Code. And here's a little sci-fi flick most people probably may not have seen. Imagine if there was a program that could allow you to relive a person's last 8 minutes through an alternate timeline. Now, this plot can be pretty confusing, especially at the end, but it is still a unique idea that I haven't seen used in quite this way. It's Jake Gyllenhaal and Michelle Monaghan that sell this for me. Their interactions, their chemistry, the way Gyllenhaal gets progressively smarter in trying to figure out what happened on the train he's put on. Maybe it's because I've seen so much Doctor Who, this idea almost felt like a Doctor Who episode, and strangely enough, I think this could actually work. With plenty of drama and suspense, Source Code gets a high recommendation from me. It's just as good if not better than Inception. Number 4, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Honestly, how could I not put this higher up? The Harry Potter series is one of my favorite film series of all time. It's a series that I grew up with, like so many others. While I may not have read all the books, I have seen all the movies. Now, this being my undying curse when I was younger, I was often called Harry Potter a lot in my middle school years and high school years. My own fault for getting Potter-style glasses. I went to the theater all dressed up like him, and all the kids were like, "Wow, you look just like him." It was cute at first, but then it got old. But my thoughts on the Harry Potter series are for another video. What I can say is that for the final film, movie 8, there is no better way to end the series than here. It was amazing. Harry, Ron, Hermione, the three of them have beautiful chemistry, the likes of which we may never see again in a film series. Not only was this more epic than Part 1, it was darker, more interesting, and it kept me on the edge of my seat throughout the whole film. If Harry Potter was going to go for a proper ending, Deathly Hallows Part 2 was the perfect way to do it. The actors have come so far, as well as the special effects and the sets. I view the whole series as a growing experience, and yes, the series has had its highs and lows, but the highs outweigh all the nitpicky lows here. I didn't just watch the Harry Potter series. For the first time I can actually say this, I lived it. Leave this series as it is, Highwood. It will be a classic series soon enough. Number 3, The Muppets. Another Muppets movie? Really? Trust me, that was my reaction too. Growing up, I was always partial to the Muppets instead of Sesame Street. I couldn't really stand Elmo or Big Bird in any of them. I won't lie, it felt awkward going in by myself, but once the movie started playing, while slow to start, I re-entered my childhood. There hasn't really been a good Muppet movie since the original, and I think it's safe to say this is the best one out of the whole series. Like fine wine, the Muppets have aged well over time and pick up like nothing has changed. The songs are catchy, the story is quite gripping, and the humor is surprisingly decent. Amy Adams, well, wasn't exactly my favorite actress, though she still had a great singing voice. Jason Segel is actually pretty funny if put in the right spot. And all the Muppets retained their original personalities. What intrigued me most was the way it made fun of itself. It was interesting to see how it not only made fun of itself, but also with how it caught up to our pop culture and ribbed on it, sort of like what the Three Stooges did. For the record, Animal has been my favorite Muppet since the beginning. As a musical comedy, this is great, and it's fun for the whole family, no matter how old you are. Number 2, Sherlock Holmes, Game of Shadows. Ha! Thought I was going to put this as number 1? Well, honestly, this and number 1 are tied, and to avoid being predictable and to give another movie the deserving chance to number 1, Sherlock Holmes 2 takes a back seat. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved this movie. It had tense drama, great action scenes, and the chemistry between Holmes, Moriarty, and Watson was highly intriguing to watch. Robert Downey Jr. always seems to find his way up to the top of my favorite movies list. He made it for the 2008 and 2009 list, almost near this one, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be topping my 2012 list. But I don't put him high up because of how much of a fanboy I am of him. I put him up there because I enjoy watching him and I think he's an amazing actor. Probably the highlights of this movie are Moriarty and Holmes. The interactions between the two feel real and intense. Most likely the best hero-villain showdown I've seen in a long time. I took the movie for what it was worth, and on that, I still really enjoyed it. It follows the style of the first quite closely with the twists and turns, and many surprises it holds. More so than the action, the true heart of the movie lies within the writing. Hell, I would love to read this as a novel, and it'd probably be just as epic. I can safely recommend the first Holmes and Game of Shadows. Mystery movies are a rarity these days. Enjoy them while you can, and it's not often you'll find a movie like this. And my number one favorite movie of 2011 is Real Steel, aka the Rock'em Sock'em Robots movie with that Australian dude who played Wolverine, or Robo Rocky, whatever is your preference. But if you view it like that, it can either ruin or enhance the movie. By no means is this a ripoff. I found the story only slightly predictable, but it didn't ruin the overall feel. There's a good reason why this is number one on the list. By action movie standards, the fights between the robots look amazing and brutal. I was half expecting the CG to suck, but the detail to each of the robots took me by surprise. I only saw this movie on a whim and because it intrigued me. Hugh Jackman in this was amazing as always, and the kid that got to play Max, Dakota Goyo, was amazing. Sure, he looked like that one Anakin kid, but this kid could act. This is one of the very first movies I think I gave a 5 out of 5 to. I felt every blow this movie dealt out, and I can't think of many movies that had me on the edge of my seat, cheering and rooting on the main hero. It was, well, intense. That's the best word I can use. Don't underestimate this movie. It's actually well put together and worth any action flick lover's time. That has been my list. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, swag, all that shit. I will see you guys later.